Hello team and welcome back to another Line War cast. This is your map today in a 1v1 between Animorph in blue and NLE Croppa, also known as Cryptosporidium, also known as Real Bug in red. This is from the semifinals of the T2 2024 tournament that's going on right now in Line War. Croppa is spawning in the bottom right. I'm going to call Croppa Crypto. It's too late. And Animorph is spawning in blue in the top left. Both players, you noticed from the picking phase earlier that they had blocked out this part of the map in general. We often see that the center of the map, both players will try to pick it in the picking phase, since it's broadly the best place to go. Bug is going to be in the better position in a lot of ways, just because they're kind of more center of the map, whereas Animorph is going to have to fight from the north to get like most of this landmass. It's pretty much just a one landmass map. Not a lot of navy that's going to be involved in this game. There's a chance that both players could get a navy. There's some refineries that Animorph could take if building a boat and all these water locations. This is technically an island on its own. There's no way to get land units there without a boat or a plane. And Animorph's gone for a town first. No eco for Crypto. Just 2 factories and 3 barracks, going for a split of artillery pieces and SAMs. The SAMs aren't going to be useful. Both players are actually going for SAMs. Neither player has an airport. But SAMs are a great unit to build at first. Sometimes in the Discord, there's been a lot more questions from new players, which is you cannot understand how excited I am for that. But sometimes the new players will ask, like, what sort of units to build, what sort of build to go for that is, like, you know, approachable for somebody new to the game. And in general, I think building one factory and making it build SAMs at first is generally a good play. In case your opponent shows up with air, the SAMs can also do a decent job fighting on land against infantry. And really, the only thing that you will lose hard to is if your opponent goes for a very heavy tank opener pressure. And tank openings are hard to deal with in themselves just in general without your own tanks. Blue's got 2 farms on the way, so we will expect to see that blue has more eco here. It's 427 for blue and 350 for red, which makes a lot of sense. And Bug gets this forward barracks and will be the first to get into this forest, which is a pretty big deal. This is a very large red army, and Animorph's going to have to start sending more units to the center. Because of the eco investment at first, Blue's going to have more money to work with. It just depends on what Animorph wants to go for. If we look at Blue's vision, the army is just coming into vision right now. Probably going to see Blue even dig in this forest. This defensive line, this wide, sparse defensive line with this directive is actually Red's play. So Crypto wants to dig in the forest and get that infantry bonus. When they're in the forest, infantry fight better, especially if they're in entrenchments. Yeah, so this was just a move command from Crypto to get these 4 infantry up here to start building something and capping this territory. And it's not really clear what Animorph's going to do. This is kind of a tough position, I think, if you're blue. There's the risk of getting boxed in the north, which is just certain death in a game that super requires that your economy outpaces your opponents. In like 99% of the games that we see, the player who has more economy wins the game. That's a factory that we hear from blue. So both players on pretty much the exact same production. And there's no real risk that Red's gonna get flanked or anything. There's only these 4 infantry for Animorph on the right-hand side. And it looks like Crypto's idea is just to funnel more units over to the left and then eventually get this dig in. You can see the idea. Watching replays in Line War is so great because you can look at the commands of both players. If you're ever interested in, like, what would somebody who has maybe played a little bit longer, what would they do? And this is what you're seeing Crypto do, sending all the units to the left, and then the plan is to eventually do a dig in here and box in Animorph entirely. Animorph probably still has more eco. It's 529 for blue and 420 nice for red. And it's a third farm for Animorph. So in general, it seemed like blue is not all that concerned about the situation right here. Since if you were concerned, you probably would put down production instead of more economy. I would say that blue's going to go for an airport next, except for the fact that blue doesn't have any reliable source of energy without getting these two energy locations in the water. There is this refinery in the top right, but depending on if Crypto puts a barracks in this mountain range, it would be difficult for Animorph to actually keep that alive. You can see that Crypto doesn't have a lot of money and won't be able to afford a barracks like this, so it's not really clear what Croppa is going to do. I'm just jumping between the different names now for red, but it's unsure. Like, it could be a refinery here, and then this turns into 2 tanks. Both factories going for tanks, which could make a lot of sense. This is an open field. Obviously, red knows that Animorph's base is somewhere around here, just based on the fog of war. And it's pretty bold from Animorph to try to go for a push. These 2 defensive line artillery pieces are really nice with the extra range that they get. So blue's calculation is that with the artillery pieces, the infantry are going to be able to get through. Obviously, from red's point of view, just some infantry are going to get diverted on this attack move dot from the infantry. But it's an interesting play from Animorph. Being able to break out here is a huge deal. Animorph using these defensive lines just to slow down some of these infantry and trade better, pardon me, and then Animorph going for a barracks and a factory. So clearly Real Bug is not going to be able to dig in here. With the added production, blue's certainly going to be able to push at least up into this mountain range. And that, otherwise, if we go top down, pretty much the same amount of territory caps for both players. Eco-wise, it's 480 for red and 621 for blue. Animorph's making 200 per minute. NLE Croppa at 72 per minute. Meaning that the pace of growth that blue can afford to go is probably higher. There's more opportunity. Animorph might even put down a town after this. And this push is going pretty well, all things considered. Even just making the red infantry drop out of the defensive lines is a pretty big deal. And then you can see that Animorph's actually going to go for a more dedicated push, taking these infantry out of the entrenchments as well. And now that Animorph sees that there's no planes yet, rather, blue stops at 2 SAM production and then is just going for more artillery pieces right now. It is a town for Animorph next, which I think is a really good play. It kind of puts blue further ahead on the eco. And turning into a little bit of a scary position for red. The defensive lines are really good. The red's kind of backing up here because this is a large blob of artillery at this point. It's nice for red to have 4 SAMs in total in case blue did go for an airport, but we know that that wasn't the case. And the ecos are so important. It's 650 for blue and 510 for red. But red has more center control. This barracks is enormous because it's going to produce so much more income over time for red, capping the bottom part of the map. And I think on the left-hand side, over time this is going to be good for blue with this factory and the barracks. I would have expected blue to stay digged in this position until there was more army, but Animorph's feeling good, just deciding to go for it. There probably is enough infantry to actually take this fight, and then in the main part of the fight, it's going super great for blue. Destroying the barracks would be very nice. even if the infantry don't destroy the barracks, by putting them on this target command, they kind of soak all this fire from the artillery pieces, which lets blue's artillery get even closer. And 520 income for red and 651 for blue still. The momentum will start shifting here in blue's favor, I believe. It's tough to go this long without building any eco, or that's what it seems like lately watching replays. Is that you kind of want to have at least a handful of economy buildings that were built early on in the game. Because then the money just snowballs. It's a nice factory from Animorph. This is going to be a big deal. It's going to allow blue to actually maybe start applying some pressure on this front. And folks who complain about the artillery blob, maybe you were watching the game a few years ago when artillery blobs were even more present in the meta. They still are. Still super good. Especially once they get to these numbers. There's no air for red to actually deal with this. It's more barracks on the way for crypto. And Animorph decided to push on the left-hand side at a perfect time. It clears out all the red units here. And now Animorph setting up all these capture lines to take all the territory. Makes a lot of sense that red is going to dig in this choke, which is going to make another stalemate kind of go on here. I think the right hand, pardon me, the right hand side is where it's going to start heating up a little bit. Because Animorph's probably going to look to fully encircle red and then start applying pressure on the base potentially. It's 3 factories and 4 barracks for blue that's directly going to contribute to this fight, and then it's 2 factories and 5 barracks for red. So in some ways blue with more production capacity. And what would be interesting to see is when and if either player decides to go for an airport. There's a chance that red could go for an airport first. There is this refinery in the bottom. And these two would be relatively safe. 790 eco for blue and 570 for red. Red doesn't really have the money to go for an airport, probably. Maybe some of these farms. We'll see what the idea is. This is a nice run by from Crypto. The one farm is going to be destroyed. Animorph has good reaction time to get here. But I think if these red infantry commit, they'll be able to destroy it. And then on the right-hand side, nothing's gone on yet. Animorph's going to slowly start taking all this territory back with these 2 infantry, and it looks like Crypto's going to keep going south. So the blue dots go down. Crypto's not going to go for the town. Sets it on fire. There's no burning damage on buildings, so it's not like this building will be destroyed. Nothing needs to repair it. It will just repair itself over time. And it's a 3rd town from Animorph. So Animorph's now on 3 towns, 4 farms. And this is the first eco building from Crypto, which I think is a good call. There is this airport for Animorph in the mountains. That's going to be a huge problem for red in a little bit. Animorph doesn't have, or sorry, rather, Crypto has a decent amount of SAMs here, but the angle at which the planes could attack these buildings, the strikers could just, or whatever plane it is, it could be helicopters, but they could just approach from this way to all the production. And then obviously it's going to be super good in the south against those barracks. Helicopters, strikers, bombers, whatever it is over time, they're going to be able to deal with just 2 barracks worth of army. It's a very spirited attack from red, but it's not going to work. The defender's advantage is going to start kicking in pretty heavily for Animorph. It's a pretty large blob of artillery for red, though, and there's no airports as mentioned. But pause the video and you tell me who's gonna win this, because I'm pretty sure it's gonna be blue. If red's able to actually break through this entire thing and then actually get to blue's main base with this amount of artillery, then it would be a problem. But I just don't see it really happening. More eco from Crypto, I think that's the right play. Nice little backdoor run by from Animorph. And this might destroy one of the factories. Luckily for red, one of these artillery pieces is about to pop, so it's going to be able to defend here. But with the ecos being 632 for red and 937 for blue, this is starting to put red in a very difficult position. Just on the economy, this is a lot of units to lose in the forest. Well played from both players, though, I think. I feel like Animorph is playing a very clean game. And now with this refinery for blue, it's only for the airplanes. It's going to be helicopters and then 2 more barracks on the right or the left-hand side. But even getting the refinery allows blue to do things like mixing in a tank or 2 here to do run-bys like this. There's 2 things that a run-by like this does. Well, I mean, the main thing is that you just distract all these units. They have to stay at home. They're not at this point in the forest and about to get into this fight. They're still dealing with these infantry. So a super good play from blue. But Crypto might be able to destroy a barracks or a factory and kind of return the favor. Animorph's going for more economy. So blue probably feeling pretty good. The helicopters are going to get in the fight now. And it is commandos out of this barracks close to the airport, and the tube is on the runway or whatever. So it's transport planes with some commando drops for blue. These artillery pieces, this army for red is fully committed at this point. The reinforcements are going to get cut off, and there's more artillery pieces that are moving in as well. So now it's just about how much damage that these red pieces can do. Artillery pieces, they could do a move command to get out of this fight by going this way. But in general, they're just so slow, you wouldn't really move them like that. It might be the best call. I don't know what red's going to do here. The factory getting taken out is nice. The economy for red is still a little bit of a tough point in this matchup. And factory in the bottom for red, which is really the only thing that Crypto can possibly do in this situation, is build a factory to build SAMs to counter the helicopters, because red knows that this is just going to get worse before it gets better. There's going to be more helicopters that are put into this fight. Of course, infantry can shoot down helicopters, but with just 2 barracks, it's not really all that feasible that red's going to be able to do that, even with the best of micro and multitasking, because there's still this fight going up in the north. Infantry in the defensive lines can take a lot of artillery shots. One of the things about being in an entrenchment is you take less grenade damage, is what it's called. And artillery pieces do grenade damage. So this is going to buy red some time. But, I mean, Animorph very confident. This town is very close to the front. And it is Sam's. The doubling down of barracks in the south, I think, is a nice play from red. If this, like, defensive line holds and the main base doesn't get destroyed for red, then the barracks over time are going to pay off, especially with these SAMs coming out, and the first one's almost complete. Okay, so this transport plane is going. Not super clear where it's going to land. It's right here, actually, right on the refinery for Animorph. So blue's going to get a good scout, see that there's no refinery, and that's going to tell Animorph that it's very unlikely that there's an airport for red. For a second I was going to say, why aren't these capping? But it's because there's these 3 infantry in the mountains just chilling. And it's actually both of these towns for Animorph. So the eco's 1100 for blue and 724 for red. And more commandos, more transport planes. Which I think that one of the next places that blue could drop them is probably behind this defensive line. Commandos with their great vision, great scouting, they're probably heading down to this refinery next. And first airport for red, which I really like. I really like this, I think. I mean, there's one of the nice things about building an airport is that it forces your opponents to mix in some amount of SAMs, so it means less artillery pieces. It's not as big of a deal now because this is such a large blob for blue, but over time it's kind of nice. It pares down the amount of artillery pieces that blue is going to be showing up with. And one of the things for artillery pieces is on a target command, I believe these artillery pieces are actually going to roll up right to the side of the town. They're not going to start shooting around here where they probably have the range. The commandos being loose for red is actually super annoying because these get very much out of vision and then out of mind, and then they cause havoc like 10 minutes later. But this defensive line is falling, and that's very likely the end of the game. Because what will happen now is that blue will just take all these buildings, destroy the airport, probably when there's like 1 helicopter that's completed, maybe 2. And then just take the northern part of the map. And top down. You can see that town explode on the top down view, which is a nice touch. Shout out Infenzia. Or I assume Infenzia, I'm not sure. I guess there's multiple things going on there in the game development, cycle that I see the town explode like that. But again, this is from the semifinals of the T2 2024 tournament going on right now. Congrats to both these players for making it this far. This was game 2, I believe, in a best of 5 between the 2 players. Yes, I think it's a best of 5 in the semifinals. This tournament, they use these lives throughout the tournament where both players, you can use 2 vetoes of a game that you lose, and I think that throws off, like, if it's a best of 5. I don't know. I just watch the games as I see them, and then the bracket updates and someone goes ahead and I go, sweet. That's how it worked. There's a rocket for Animorph as well. This is the semifinals. There's no reason why red should be, give up as, like, quickly at all. It would be nice to destroy this refinery, but unfortunately for red, there's actually 5 blue infantry that have done a great job to track them. There's enough SAMs here now for red that it's going to force Animorph to move the helicopters over, and as I start thinking and saying that, here come these helicopters to the center. There's no SAMs here anymore for red. And so this is going to be a lot of dead artillery pieces once these 4 helicopters show up. And I was wrong. There's going to be 3 or 4 helicopters that are complete by this time. I wonder if there's going to be more SAM production from Animorph. Since there's no SAMs, the helicopters can actually do decent in air-to-air combat against the other helicopters. And those artillery pieces nearly destroyed that refinery, which would have been very nice. Where are these commandos? So they're two just chilling here. Red still, or blue still knows that there's no refinery. And blue actually, yeah, at this point sees the airport as well. The effect of units, like of their vision, it's cumulative. The more units you have around, the more you can see. Commandos and interceptors have phenomenal vision. Tanks have horrible vision. But if you have a bunch of tanks, they will see things. If you only have one commando, it still sees a lot, though. Anyway, GG. Well played both. Again, game 2 in the semifinals between these two. The winner... Should I say it? Spoilers. Spoilers, the winner of this series is going to face... Yeah, Desobnern in the final. There's no other semifinal cast between Nickname and Desobnern that I'm going to do. But I hope you have a wonderful night, day, evening, whatever it is. Thanks for the support on the video, on the videos, liking, subbing, commenting. It all helps the channel grow. People tell me I just gotta tell you to subscribe. I've always found that so pushy though, when I hear people do that. But anyway, thanks folks. Have a good one. Peace.